Formula Podcast, the show where two buddies have too much free time and have been a little inconsistent in the past with our release schedule. At the end of the day, we love talking. We love talking about superheroes. We love talking about movies. We love talking about hot shit right now. In case you don't remember, because it's been a long ass time, my name is Christian.
Jordan. Hello, everybody. And it's been about a good 2 years since the last time we've actually recorded something. Won't really get into the details of it, but what was 2 years ago? 2021? That sounds about right.
Yeah, pretty much. And again, nothing that we need to delve too much into, but I think we can put a nice little bow on it by saying life happens. Life gets in the way. A lot has changed,
Definitely.
but at the end of the day, our passion for this show has not. And speaking of things that have changed, this is going to be a very special episode due to something major that has changed and something that we've been on record talking about before. We've actually
It
had
was actually it was actually our last episode too. Like, for whatever
really.
reason, during the stint of our podcast career here, most of our episodes have been about DC, if you can remember. We basically went through the movies that were considered to be part of the DCU or what was scrapped. So if you remember, we started with Green Lantern, and the only reason we even talked about that is because it was going to be canon to, the current universe that we were supposed to have now, but they canceled that and then just moved forward with Man of Steel. And then after Man of Steel, that bred BVS, Batman vs Superman, which is arguably one of the worst superhero movies ever fucking made that I've ever had the displeasure of watching. Then the next episode we talked about Suicide Squad, Wonder Woman, and the Justice League, aka the original theatrical cut of Justice League. And then following that, we were discussing Aquaman and Shazam. But funny enough, the Snyder Cut was not out yet. It had just been announced, I think roughly around June or July of 2020, and the movie didn't come out until March of 2021. And that was actually the last thing that we talked about.
Oh, we did end up talking about that announcement, right?
We sure did, because there was a lot of speculation about what was going to happen, and that's actually what this episode is more or less all about. How the Snyderverse literally shook the foundation of the DC cinematic universe, and not for the better either. Ever since 2020 had came and went, or at least 2021. Well, first of all, before we even kind of dive into a timeline of things, I just want to start off with this preface right here. I was never against the release of Snyder Cut movement. I always thought it was my thing is this. We always kind of figured that there was some cuts of this movie laying around, right? Like, we always knew that this movie was never 100% fully completed, right?
Right.
But a lot of these Snyder fans thought that Zack Snyder finished his movie, they put it in a vault, and they slapped him on his hand and said, no, you can't put this out. And that's how they really perceived that situation. And then when it got announced, and they gave him a budget of about 100 million, I think, or was it more?
100 million was being pumped in to finish this movie.
It gave him $100 million to not only add special effects to this movie, but to do reshoots as well. And then it came out a year later. Now, I'll go on record and say that I always thought this was a bad idea. I always thought that giving this group or this fan base this movie was always a bad idea, because here we are, 3 years later, and they still won't let go of it.
I mean, it's just really interesting to see how everything's gone down because you mentioned before how we were on our DC train and the reason for that was because COVID just hit and there's a big halt on new shit coming out at the time. And before things came out and they decided, oh, let's throw it on HBO Max, we're like, you know what? Let's just keep the DC train going and we can analyze this entire universe starting from the ground up. And we ended up talking about the DC movies. And it's funny how you mentioned Green Lantern being the first one because that was technically supposed to be canon in the universe that we were supposed to get. Keyword supposed to get. And now everything has just been flipped on its head. And to know that it's really dead and buried and they're not moving forward with it, it's kind of mind blowing because it went from this movie doesn't even exist to yes it does, it's locked away in a vault like you said. Nope, turns out it wasn't really finished at all, but they're going to be willing to spend even more money to finish it, kind of proving our point when we were talking about it before.
Exactly.
And then it comes out, so now all these people have all this hype, like, okay, we made them put out the movie, now it's just a matter of time, it only makes sense to continue the universe. And they got a little taste of that, and then boom, got fucking shut down. And now looks like James Gunn is going to be running the show, and that is just something that I can say I wasn't expecting, but I'm really pleasantly surprised by Warner Brothers for taking this step and putting someone in charge like that.
Most definitely in the right step. I mean, and by no means is this episode meant to bash the Snyder cut of Justice League. But I will say that I don't think it deserves as much praise as it gets, as I see it get. It's extremely drawn out. Before we even talk about this timeline, I kind of just want to go along with what we liked and didn't like about this movie, right? I like the fact that there was a lot of things that were done logically in the movie that made sense. Like, if you remember the Justice cut, and this was something that I always was hung up on, the part where Steppenwolf is in Themyscira and he takes the mother box from the Amazonians, right? They basically do this dramatic scene where they're tearing down the lair or the place that they keep the mother box. They're sacrificing their lives, they're giving it their all, and all of a sudden, boom, all the stuff is gone. They walk off thinking that he's dead. And what does Steppenwolf do? He uses his axe and he cuts a hole in the side of the building, right? But then when you watch the Snyder cut, it's a whole thing happening. The whole building falls down, it collapses into the water. It makes so much more sense from a visual and a story progressive, right?
Absolutely.
I do enjoy the fact that everything felt much more fleshed out. I'm not a big fan of Ray Fisher, but his cyborg arc was one of the better things about the movie that I enjoyed. I also
Instead of being a complete
was,
non-character in the first version.
oh, he was an afterthought in the Justice League. And Batman was much more fleshed out. Everything was much more fleshed out. But the biggest gripe that I have with this movie is the redundancy of slow motion. I remember telling you when I first watched this movie, I'm like, I got a really strong feeling that at least a good quarter of this movie is in slow motion. And I was right. I remember IGN put out an article, and I'll actually probably look it up here shortly. But IGN put out an article about how much slow-mo was in the Snyder cut. And it's just atrocious. Like, I don't think that I need to watch a 4-hour, 2-minute movie and 35 minutes of that slow-mo. That's just ridiculous.
I don't need this. And when you first said that, I remember being a little skeptical, like, oh, it's probably a little bit of a reach. Like 30 minutes, that's ridiculous, right? But then when you see that article and they put the math together and you realize that you're sitting here watching this movie and half a fucking hour is spent on slow motion, you're like, why? You're wasting my time.
And I'm sorry. I found the article. 10% of that movie's in slow motion, and it's a total of 24 minutes and 7 seconds. That's
24
kind of fucking
minutes.
ridiculous. In a 4-hour and 2-minute movie. That's a little over the top there.
That's where it is with that movie, man. And I think where you might be headed is kind of where I'm at too, or at least in a similar way, because yes, it is definitely an improvement. I'm not going to act like Justice League is better in really any way, because I don't think I can think of too many things that are better.
It's horrible.
But with that being said, I'm really just convinced that it only gets as much praise as it is because the first version was so botched. And if this was the original version that we were going to get from the start, nobody would find it as not nobody, but a lot of the reception that it's gotten would be died down tremendously because there would be no other previous version that was so bad that makes this one look so great.
Right? It's like comparing a piece of shit to a fucking Leonardo da Vinci painting, right? Like obviously one is going to shine brighter than the other.
And that's kind of where it is with that movie. I mean, I have problems with the slow mo. I still think, without repeating everything that you're saying,
Oh, that's
so many
not
things were dragged out.
that's not the only problem you have with that movie. Come on. I'm waiting for you to get to it.
I mean, with this movie itself, I have a lot of fucking issues with the changes that he added that he felt were so fucking necessary. And whatever goodwill that I had that was like, you know what, this is a pretty positive experience watching this movie, went down the fucking toilet with the after scene at the very end in the fucking desert, the stupid nightmare world that this guy gets off to, which I'll never understand. He watched Mad
Mad
Max at the
Max
time.
Batman.
Yeah, he watched Mad Max, really liked the sandy environment and the craziness of that, and thought that the Justice League would be good in that. It's boring. It's not cool to look at. It's not interesting. It's not appealing. Everyone looks really dumb with all this desert stuff, and they don't even look like their own characters anymore. And I'm just
Well,
not
not
really
to
sure.
mention that, like, Jared Leto sucks as fucking Joker. Like,
He's the worst Joker. He officially cements his place. He just writes his name in the fucking sand as the worst Joker we've ever had because of that. I was not on the hate Jared Leto's Joker train up until watching Zack Snyder's Justice League, and now
oh
I can't
yeah,
stand him.
this one just made it worse. I mean, he kind of pretty much sealed his fate with Suicide Squad, but at least like that, in my opinion, was a lot less cringe than what we got in the Snyder Cut. And
It
there's so
still
many
was, but
people,
yes, a lot less, very much so.
and a lot of people on Twitter were like, "This is the most Batman and Joker conversation I've ever heard. This is so good." And I'm just like, "Wow, Joker talking about giving reach arounds. That's peak Batman and Joker, huh?" The
That's
bar's
peak
the
Batman
bar's
and
been raised.
this is really some groundbreaking shit, man. And I never thought that I would see Joker here non-ironically asking, well, maybe he was being ironic, but it doesn't fucking matter.
It
Asking
doesn't
Batman
matter.
who's gonna give him a reach around, and Batman over here thinking he sounds really cool, like, believe me, I would fucking kill you. Like, God, it just makes you want to roll your eyes every single time. And it's so crazy to me that at first, when this movie first came out, there was a lot of people going around being like, "Oh, this desert scene was so cool. Oh, this was great." I saw a lot of praise.
Hell
I just
yeah,
felt like I
man.
was
I
living.
remember that shit.
I felt like I was living
Everyone
in a fucking
ate that
simulation.
shit up, man. They loved it. And I'm over here like, am I the only one that does not like this? Like, can we stop? And then, he wakes up, and I don't mean to segue, but he wakes up, and then Martian Manhunter, CGI fest right there is talking to him on the edge of his fucking house. And not to mention, don't even get me started on the Martian Manhunter bullshit, because that shit was
So
stupid and
stupid.
unnecessary too. You take this sentimental moment between Clark's mother and Lois Lane, and then you find out that it's the fucking general from fucking Man of Steel that he just so happened to retcon, by the way. It so happened to be Martian Manhunter. And it's like, this guy, Zack Snyder, doesn't give a single fuck about substance. He just wanted to put Martian Manhunter in there because he thought it was cool. Let's just ignore the fact that Lois thought she was having a very deep conversation with, Clark's mother or whoever the fuck it is that he was impersonating. I don't remember. But then, you're like, oh, wow, that was actually a really nice written scene. Like, that was something that I felt was very heartfelt that I did not even get in Man of Steel or BVS. And then you fucking find out it's Martian Manhunter, and you're just like, okay, like, fuck it, right?
I mean, every single emotion you were feeling or starting to build up for that scene, he completely wipes his ass with when you find out that, oh, guess what, Martian Manhunter, because I love cameos and more DC. Like, oh my God, bro.
Oh, and dude, he tried so hard to get fucking Green Lantern in this movie too, but WB was like, nah, fuck you, you're not doing that shit.
He almost quit making the movie or finishing the movie because they weren't going to give him Green Lantern, and he finally
Hell
settled on
yeah.
Martian Manhunter. So what happened to your true artistic integrity? This is his true vision. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, not for much, you know. Um, but moving on, it is an improvement from the first. Um,
Right.
is it that much of an improvement? I would say so. From a logic perspective, but from a substance perspective, it still has the standard Snyderisms that drag the movie down.
It does not
Um,
justify that runtime whatsoever. I don't care what anyone
Absolutely
says.
not. You get rid of all the slow mo, that's 24 minutes right there. You get rid of the nightmare scene, that's what, another 12 minutes.
Probably.
So the movie could have easily have been 3.5 hours. And also that fucking stupid scene where all the Norwegian women are singing the Arthur. That shit sucks too.
So
Uh,
dumb.
could have got rid of that as well. But
So
anyway,
yeah.
anyway, but no, but again, that's a Snyderism that I could have done without. I didn't need that. Um, but moving on, that is more or less what we thought of the movie. Obviously, other people are entitled to their opinions. But yeah, as soon as that movie came out, what ended up, and what did I say was going to happen? They're gonna give them what they want. They're gonna become entitled. They're gonna ask for the universe to come back. And what fucking happened? The universe restore the Snyderverse, and that
I
just
mean,
happened for what, a good another next 2 years.
and it's just weird how I don't see how they couldn't predict that. I really think that it made perfect sense that that was going to happen because we both said it was going to happen years ago. And then later you find out that they're over here talking about how the upper end or the top executives regret doing it because instead of healing the fan base, it just divided them more and made them worse. I'm like, yeah, because you fucking fed them. Like that's what happens. Now they think they
Exactly.
can bully you around with hashtags.
Chain up you chain up a dog and you feed it. What's gonna happen later on? The dog's gonna get hungry again. Doesn't stop being hungry. So yeah, they did that for another fucking 2 years. And, the problem with DC is that the universe is inconsistent. I don't know what vibe they're going for because there's so many different vibes. I mean, you look at Man of Steel and BVS, and then you jump to Suicide Squad, a
Mm.
fucking music video superhero movie. And then you get a movie like Shazam, where it's about kids and, getting powers and being adopted and stuff like that. And then we jump to fucking Birds of Prey, and it's like, what are we doing here? Like, I'm not understanding the characters that we're using. I'm not understanding the tone that we're going for. Like, what is happening right now? Everything was just so inconsistent.
So messy. I feel like nobody could understand what was the pattern here or like what was the plan or build up because you never knew what was coming next. And should I care about this? Why is this next? Why are we using this character and not something else? Like, I never understood what was their plan with this. And obviously they had no idea either. They were kind of going as they went along.
Yep. And, shitty Wonder Woman 1984. That did horrible. But you know what's funny is the only pretty decent thing that was bred out of this was James Gunn's Suicide Squad. And this is not a James Gunn dick suck fest, even though that might be what a lot of people might think it might turn out to be. But the Suicide Squad was the first DC movie that actually struck me as good or non-mediocre since Aquaman. I enjoyed Aquaman. I thought it was great. But
Yeah.
when was Aquaman? 2018. Fast forward to 2021, and then the Suicide Squad comes out, and James Gunn's directing it. And I'll go on record again. You and me also had another conversation when we were doing our Suicide Squad episode, and I said, "Why does it need to be so world-ending? Why can't we just have a small threat on a smaller scale, or a big threat on a smaller scale where a lot of people may not know about it?" And what do we get? Starro, and it made more sense.
Where it makes sense to have the Suicide Squad fight them, right? Not Enchantress beaming a fucking ray into the sky about to end the world. Like what
to
is
to go
this?
get to go get Amanda Waller because she needs a ride. Like,
She needs a ride home. And you know what? Like, I'm glad you mentioned Aquaman because you were saying that the only good thing, and I was gonna say I disagree. I think Aquaman's a good thing, but you're right. That was a long time ago, and it's crazy to think how long 2018 was, how long ago that
Yeah, it's
was.
5 years.
And it really makes you realize how like hungry you were for something good because you and I were so disinterested. I know you had no interest whatsoever to see Birds of Prey. You eventually saw it, but you couldn't care less at first when it was coming out.
Mediocre. I
Wonder
mean, some of the
Woman,
cool things in it.
Wonder Woman, you saw it later. You didn't see it right away, but I remember that you were just like, you weren't super impressed by it. You didn't think it was impactful. You kind of forgot about it soon. So I didn't like it. I personally had a lot of problems with it. But it's just we're just waiting for something that's decent. We're not asking for Marvel because a lot of times the big turnaround for that argument is, oh, well, you just like Marvel movies, which I don't. If they made the same thing as Marvel, I think that would be dumb, and I wouldn't be interested because I don't like people
And a
copying.
lot of Marvel movies are just extremely overrated too. Like Marvel has its gems, but a lot of them just aren't really that great. A lot of them kind of meet that mediocre to okay scale for me too.
Yeah, some gems in there for sure, but I can't say that I go back and really rewatch any of them recently, like at all.
Me
So
neither.
yeah, but I mean, with that being said, here we go with the Suicide Squad, and it completely turned me around too. I mean, I didn't really have any doubts. I was always kind of excited for it when they announced who was making it, what's it going to be about, or who's doing it. I was interested about John Cena. I wasn't really sure who Peacemaker was really at all, but
Before we get into that, why don't we put a little bit of respect on James Gunn's name, right? Like, why don't we
even
talk
more.
about yeah, let's talk about what this man has done, right? Like
Okay,
he's made Guardians of the Galaxy, right? Like he can be accredited with that, and those are solid movies. I really like the first one more than the second, but they're solid. I have no complaints. I know he wrote Dawn of the Dead, which he also did with his buddy Zack Snyder, who we just got done taking a big steaming shit on. Um, he also did Slither too, and Slither is a good horror movie. I mean, you've seen Slither, right?
you told me about Slither, and that's how I watched it, and I thought it was great. I thought Slither was cool, and you can't also forget his writing credits too. I mean, some of the critically acclaimed things that he's done. He wrote both of the live-action Scooby-Doo movies. There's that.
Yep, that is true. He did write those as well. So the man clearly knows how to write characters, right? And like you said, you take a guy like Peacemaker, and with what he did with him during that movie, eventually got him his own show. And even the show did good. But a lot of these Snyder fans love to sit there and say, well, who gives a shit about an unknown character? And it's like, well, I give a shit about that unknown character because he was written better than the well known characters. He's written better than
Exactly.
Batman. He's written better than Superman. So, yeah, I should give a shit about them because I want to see more of it, and other people want to see more of it too.
Much rather have a well-written Peacemaker than a poorly written Batman any day of the damn week, hands down. So
Absolutely.
and a lot of this ties into his career. He knows how to actually work with character arcs. He knows how to make you care about characters. I think that's kind of something that he has as a strength, whether it comes as like CG characters or different kind of weird characters. He kind of finds a way to see their emotional core shine through, and I like that. Something else that's interesting
Even
about
with
James Gunn.
Peacemaker.
Oh
Oh, go
yeah.
ahead.
Just wanted to let you
Nah,
know
yeah.
really quick before I forget. I don't know if you knew, but James Gunn actually got his start making movies with Troma, that studio that does those really like raunchy, low budget shock movies. Have you seen those? Any Troma films?
Uh,
So
I
yeah,
looked some up.
they were like really prevalent in the 80s, 90s, kind of in the later 2000s. But an example of that, which is one of my favorites, is Poultrygeist. And they're just like really raunchy, dumb, juvenile movies with like a lot of gore, vomit, gross things, like just like sick humor. A lot of times people like look down on those movies, but they have like a big cult fan base because of how ridiculous they are. And some big names actually came out of that, like James Cameron. Not a big fan of him these days, but he started off working at Troma, making low budget movies. And James Gunn, he has a credit on a lot of Troma movies before later moving up to bigger things than that. And I just think that it's kind of like tying into him having a sense of humor that not only works for like kiddie Marvel movies, but also works when you want to be edgy and do adult humor. And I always like that he's not afraid to like tie into that because it works with superhero properties as well as it does, you know?
Well, and that's the thing too that I just like about James Gunn is that he embraces comic books, right?
Yeah.
Like you hear a lot about what Zack Snyder says. No, my Batman is Superman. Wake the fuck up.
It's for
Yeah,
grown-ups.
go watch this for grown-ups. It's not important. Go watch cartoons if you're into superheroes. Like, no, man. Superheroes can have are like onions, man. They got layers to them. If you write them well
Facts.
enough, they have layers. Look at fucking Omni Man. That nigga has layers upon layers. He's a fucking Viltrumite who's lived for thousands of years, or at least a few hundred of years, and he's so used to destroying races. He comes to Earth, falls in love with a Earth woman, has a kid, has to kill all the Guardians of the Galaxy, and later on has to decide whether or not he wants to fight his son, or either stay true to his family that he's created on Earth in the short time span that he's been alive, or
Mhm.
pledge allegiance to his empire that he's been working on. And he obviously pledges allegiance to his family instead of his empire. You gotta sit there and tell me that those aren't layers. There's no layers to that. That's a superhero, and you're telling me there's no layers to that. So anyway, my point is that superheroes, if written correctly and written well, can have layers to them. A lot of the shit that I see in Zack Snyder's movies is just so one dimensional, and that's one thing that James Gunn knows how to do is write characters. I mean, you look at Peacemaker, even though he's a fucking piece of shit, you feel bad for him because at the end of the movie, you could tell that he has remorse for killing Rick Flag. Like he really didn't want to do it, but he
He
had to.
hated that he had to do it. Yeah.
And not only that, but it affects him. Even when you
Hmm.
watch Peacemaker, it carries over with him. And that's something that should be acknowledged because it's not something, it's a pivotal moment that affects his character to the point where it changes who he is and how he acts in his own show. You're telling me you get that in any of the Snyder movies? Absolutely not.
Exactly, dude. It really makes you think. I mean, I'm picturing a Zack Snyder version of that, and I just see Peacemaker completely one note. He has his quirk, which is he acts the way he acts, and peace, freedom. I do whatever men, women, and children. But the thing is, like Zack Snyder would stick to that. There would be no nuance, no outside of the box. It would just be as soon as he finds out he had to kill Rick Flag, he turns and like feels nothing about it. He'd just be deadpan. That's it. And I can just see that happening, as opposed to like, how about
And
we try to give
and
this
people
character some dimension?
and people love to sit there and say that Batman had a character arc, right? But in my opinion, when your only character arc is you saying Martha, and then at the end of the movie saying, "Oh yeah, men can be good," that's not a character arc to me.
I don't understand how that impacts people as much as it does. I mean, if it does you, that's fine. You do you. I just personally will never understand it because when I watch that movie, in no way do I see a fulfilling arc. I really don't. And for him to try to like course correct because he got so much flack for Superman with all the destruction, it was kind of clever to try and turn that around into, oh, he destroyed the city, that's why Batman hates him or whatever. Doesn't really go anywhere else important, but it just seems like a big thing, like an afterthought that like maybe later if he didn't get so much backlash for Batman killing, maybe he would have been killing in Justice League. A lot of people are like, Batman doesn't kill anyone in Justice League. Well, now maybe if he kept it the way it was and nobody gave him shit for it, he'd probably be killing in Justice League too. I just feel like he always tried to course correct, but at the end of the day, that's his style, and that's what he thinks and how he feels about superheroes. And maybe he's just not the best fit for DC. Maybe that's just what it is. So
The thing is the Suicide Squad is the straw that broke the camel's back. Like even though the movie bombed financially, it did
which
well
we have no proof that
critically.
it did, by the way. Disclosure: people like to say that it went to streaming and not just theaters. There's no actual proof that it bombed. We don't know what happens behind the scenes, but go on.
Well, there was the COVID variant that had come out around that time. So, and then there was HBO Max. So, when you're dealing with the pandemic again with another new variant, and then on top of, release streaming, you're really just not going to make a whole lot of money.
Right.
And the thing about the Suicide Squad is that is what DC needed. Like that is desperately what DC needed at that time because I'm not gonna sit here and say that Rotten Tomatoes is the end all be all of you know for, critics because they're not. I don't believe that at all. But it has
Right.
a 90% for critics and then an 82 for audience. So the general consensus is that people like this movie. You're not getting scores like that with BVS. You're not getting
Nope.
reception like that with Man of Steel. You're not getting reception like that with Birds of Prey because James Gunn knows how to write characters. Everything in this movie flowed well. It was told in an interesting way. Um, he embraced the comic book nature of it, especially when he has Harley Quinn killing all the goons, how there's butterflies flying away, and then how he's using the crazy different fonts and shit like that. Like that is what
Hmm.
comic book movies need more of. Even James Wan, that nigga went off with Aquaman's suit, the fucking green and the orange. That shit
He
is one of the
embraced that when
best.
people thought it wouldn't work.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah, man. When I saw fucking Jason Momoa coming out of that waterfall, I was like, oh my God, he did the fucking green and orange. And that shit looked so clean. Even Ocean Master, even though I think that costume was based off more of the new 52, but even
Mhm.
Ocean Master's costume was clean. That is what more comic book movies need, is to embrace the fucking bright colors, the stupid trunks, the fucking just how everything pops. That is what we need more of. And the Snyderverse was completely devoid of that.
That's where we need more of it, and it's really not impossible to do because I think a lot of times people will say that it's just not going to work for this character. It's impossible. If you can do it for Aquaman, I don't even know how they did it, but they made those colors and that suit
And I heard it
work.
was hard too. Like it was not easy for them to make that suit. Like I heard doing that suit was really hard. But you could tell
Yes,
that they
yes. I
gave
was
a
watching
fuck.
behind the scenes on the Blu-ray, and they were talking about the costume designs. And for Ocean Master, a lot of it was practical, but a good amount of it was CG, so it wasn't as hard. But the one that Jason Momoa ended up wearing when he does his final change, that was a real practical suit that was very incredibly difficult because they actually had to put the scales and find a way to make it flexible. Like, how can he fucking
Yeah,
move his arms in this shit, you know?
exactly. And
So.
that again, that costume alone just made the movie for me. Like even though Black Manta was cool, I enjoyed him. But that costume was dope, and it definitely beats that fucking stinky poop green shit that Zack Snyder made him wear in fucking
Poop
Justice League.
green. I hated that shit. What was
Fucking
it?
dookie forest green that he had him wearing with the fucking bland ass fucking silver trident that he had. And I get, he didn't have a king's trident. I understand that, but the whole thing was just fucky, and I wasn't a fan of it.
I was like, I'll try and do it like an homage to those colors, but honestly, it's not gonna work. So we got to do like a dark, messy version of all that and just put it together on it. It's like, ugh, no thanks. You
Yeah,
can keep that shit.
stinks. Um, but that's our point, is that the Suicide Squad was the tipping point, right? And it's so funny because the guy who made the Suicide Squad and Peacemaker, which both projects proven to do well, general consistency as well, ends up becoming head of DC Studios. And really, we only have a few more movies left in this universe because he just announced a reboot. Now, before we even get into that, I still want to touch base on the other things that we have left here, and that's the Flash movie, which I have mixed feelings about. I think it's going to be garbage, but apparently that's what's going to be setting off.
Garbage. Sorry.
That's basura. That's what's going to be setting off the reboot in this universe, is the Flashpoint movie or whatever the fuck it's called. I don't even know what it's called.
The
I do
Flash.
not like Ezra Miller as a Flash. I think he's a shitty choice for Barry Allen. I wish he would not be the Flash anymore, but I guess there's bigger fish to fry like Zack Snyder, and he's no longer having anything to do with DC. So I guess that's more important.
I can't
But
stand
then we
Ezra
have,
Miller, but if we have to deal with him to see the mess of a universe go away and start anew, then whatever. It's a price I'm willing to pay.
I'll take that as well. And then we got Aquaman 2, Fallen Kingdom, and then the new Shazam that's coming out, I
Fallen
think,
Kingdom.
next month. Um, yeah, whatever the new Aquaman is called, something Kingdom, I forgot.
You
Um,
said Dominion. All right, go on.
and then, fuck, what was the other one again?
So after
Shazam.
Aquaman, we have Blue Beetle.
Yeah, and then Blue Beetle. Blue Beetle's coming out. I don't know too much about Blue Beetle, but um, that's one of the new movies coming out as well. That's already been kind of filming, and that's apparently what's going to be rebooting this entire universe that we're going to be getting. But before we get into the new movies that are coming out, I still wanted to kind of go back to the whole restore the Snyderverse. So here we are, what, post Justice League, right? The movie came out, and then
Hmm.
that's when it all starts. They start asking restore the Snyderverse, and they did this shit for 2 years, man. Um, they hated anything that, and pretty much anything that came out after the Justice League or Zack Snyder
Hmm.
Justice League. Everyone wanted to fucking hate. And when I say everyone, I mean the Snyder fans. Just wanting to hate on it, just to objectively hate on it, just because it wasn't Zack Snyder, right?
Doesn't matter what it
Well,
was. Yeah.
yeah, didn't matter who made it, didn't matter if it was actually good, didn't matter if they actually watched it or not. If it wasn't Zack Snyder, it was automatically fucking trash. Um, and then we had the Batman. Totally forgot about the Batman. I think the Batman is overrated. I enjoy it, but I do find it to be extremely overrated. Um, and then they hated that movie too. The Batman came out, they're like, it's not Zack Snyder. Why is Robert Pattinson? That's your Batman. And again, hating on it for no fucking reason. So they do that for 2 years. Nothing much changes. DC still kind of does whatever the fuck DC wants to do. Dartboard tricks and all that shit. And then we get the news of a reboot, and James Gunn is coming on as head of the DC studios. And for the longest time, everyone was speculating what's going to happen. Is he's buddies with Zack Snyder? He did Dawn of the Dead with him. Is he going to restore the Snyderverse? But then, of course, the Snyder cultists do what they do best. They start harassing. They start, acting like children, throwing tantrums to get their universe back because they're hearing about James Gunn. Why is James Gunn a guy who works at Marvel? Why is he allowed to run DC? But it's Zack
Right.
Snyder. He started all of it, right? So they're mad at him for it. They call him a pedophile. They start hashtags of fire James Gunn and all these things. And as you and I know, man, James Gunn says some off the wall shit back in the day. But that was back when edgy humor was accepted. Everyone laughed at it, blah, blah, blah. Things are a lot more tolerable now. And he even got fired from Disney over it. But ended
That's
up
why I was
coming back.
confused about it, man. I'm so confused because I thought we dealt with this back in like 2017, 18, and then I see it coming back up. And like you said, they're calling James Gunn every name in the book, and now they're bringing up all these old tweets. And I'm like, I thought we addressed this. Like, he literally got fired on a public scale because of these tweets. Like, and he talked about it. Same thing that you said. He literally said, I did this back for attention. Saying shocking things back then to get my name out there, I thought was appropriate. I've changed a lot since then. That was this many years ago. And why are people bringing this up like nobody knows about it? It's like they have nothing, so they're just gonna reach for something that's already been addressed and dead and buried. You know what I'm
Exactly.
saying?
Exactly. That's what it is. It's been addressed. He was reprimanded for it. He was fired. Then obviously they liked him enough because he makes buku dollars for, studios. They're like, hey, come on back. And not only did he come back with Disney so he could finish out his Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy, but he got a job at DC. And then that job at DC spiraled him into basically running DC studios and making movies now. Because again, he knows how to handle characters. I feel like that's enough of a resume. But the funny thing about all this is that they're hating James Gunn, like you said, they're grasping for straws, right? Just to get this guy out of here. But it's like, do you really think that he would have got a job with them if they didn't know about this? And if WB did know about this, then they had to be the biggest bunch of dumb fucks there is, right?
It's like the thing is they don't understand that maybe it's because he's good at his job, right? How did he bounce back from this? Got fired from Disney, got scooped up fast from Warner Brothers, and then that shit was quick, man. I know you remember. This wasn't like a
Hell
year
yeah, it
later.
was.
It was fast.
It was literally
Warner
like
Brothers was like,
weeks.
"Oh, he's free. Okay, let's call him up. Let's do it."
Hell
He's
yeah, man.
in demand for a reason. So you guys are acting like I don't understand why he was put in this position. How is he qualified? How this? How that? Well, maybe he's good at his job. Maybe there's more to the world than you think. And people realize that maybe his movie didn't break records financially, but you know what it did do? It got good reception. It got people saying, "Hey, I like these characters." It got people like me who had no idea who the fuck Peacemaker was to like Peacemaker after this movie, and it also got me to like Joel Kinnaman's fucking Rick Flag that I didn't even like in the first
It
movie.
was
That's what
dog
James
shit
Gunn
in the
could
first
do.
movie. Hell
Like,
yeah.
come on. What do you mean? Why? There's a reason
And
for it.
Bloodsport, man. Nobody knew who the fuck Bloodsport was. Everyone knows that he's a Superman villain now, but nobody knew who the hell he was. And then he gave him a cool Xeno helmet and made him a
Yeah.
total badass in the movie. And again, they want to hate on it because they think that's the cool thing to do.
And how
Um,
funny is it that for Bloodsport, he was kind of like meant to replace Will Smith, and they both have the same arc with like they have a daughter that they're
mhm.
estranged from, but yet I didn't give a shit about Will Smith and his daughter, but I cared about Idris Elba and his daughter. Why? Oh, geez, I wonder why. Like come on,
I mean, when you got Batman beating the Deadshot's ass in front of his daughter when where his
in a
parents,
fucking alley,
got
like his
shot in
parents
front
were
of him as a
killed.
kid. That makes all the sense in the world, right? And that has nothing to do with Zack Snyder. That's all David
That's
Ayer's
David Ayer,
bullshit
but
writing.
still,
But
yeah.
still sucks. But anyways, but again, our point is proven that the guy knows how to deal with characters and flesh them out. Um, and for years, at least for the last year, they've been calling him a pedophile. Oh, your wife is on the casting couch, blah blah blah.
Oh, dude,
And
they were taking scenes from a movie where she gets nude in, and they're spamming it at him like, "Your wife's a whore." Like, are you 12? What the fuck? Jesus
Jesus,
Christ.
man.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, go outside, like it's not that deep. And the funny thing is, like, they're over here begging this man to restore their shitty universe, but they're over here calling him a pedophile, saying his wife's a whore.
Yep.
You need to be fired. And it's like, who you asking to do this? Because he ain't gonna do it. And if you think WB is gonna do it, you're out your rabbit ass mind. So yeah, that's basically what happens. And then this is the day that broke the Snyder fans. James Gunn makes a pretty mediocre announcement. I'm gonna say, I'm kind of disappointed in that video that he put out because it wasn't very, what's the word? It just didn't scream like, oh yeah, cool. But it got the message across. And I also will go on record and say too, I like the fact that he was debunking a lot of these people's rumors and theories too. And that was cool to see. And funny thing too with that is they're like, oh, look at James Gunn writing from his own burner account and trying to get attention. You remember they were saying that shit?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, here we go. I love all the fucking conspiracies, man. There's so many things and stories that people come up with. And oh, the reason why it's happening and the reason why James Gunn is because this, and oh, they have it out for Zack Snyder for A, B, and C. And like, oh man, you really think so much is going on. And I love when there was this whole period of time. I know you remember this too, where after this was first announced, there was like all this speculation and like guessing about like how good friends James Gunn is with Zack Snyder. Like, oh,
Oh
are they
yeah.
actually friends? Here's one picture of them together, just one. Is there multiple? Oh, they're not friends. They are friends. They're not friends. Like, you guys are fucking weird, dude. You guys are so
Hell
weird.
yeah. And I'm not even gonna get started on the weird shit that I see people talk about Snyder, where they think because he works out that he's a fucking Chad.
Oh
I'm not
God,
even
yeah.
gonna open. I'm not even gonna open that can of worms. But yeah, just weird shit like that, 24/7. That's all you would see. And then he announces his new slate for DC, and his plan moving forward. Apparently, the Batman and when Todd Phillips' Joker is going to be considered DC Elseworlds, where it's
which
not
I
canon to
like.
anything. Yeah, me too. Because it gives them more room to do shit, and it's not limited by well, now we got to tie into this, and now we got to tie into that. And no, we don't need to tie into anything. Just keep it self-contained, and that's it. Which is what some things call for.
Yeah,
Um,
label it Elseworlds, and you can still be experimental and do shit like that, but you don't have to worry about people hating it because hey, if you want just the main shit, this is going to be the main line, so you can stick with that. Yeah.
Exactly. If you want to be invested, here you go. And then he announces a new Superman movie. So he's bringing it back to, I guess, Clark learning about his Kryptonian heritage, but also learning what it's like to be human or embracing his human heritage too. And to
Like a
me, that's
Smallville
just
type of movie.
screams, yeah, that just screams Superman, right? Like, even though I'm not the biggest Superman reader, I've read a comic or a few back in the day. But that's just cool to see. Is like, oh, we're gonna make Superman a relatable human being, which is what he should be. He shouldn't be a person looked at as a god or this fearing alien being that's ever so powerful that what if he sneezed on a group of people, he'd murder all of them. Like, no, I don't care to hear that about Superman. Superman's relatable because the guy grew up with parents on a farm and just wants to do the right thing, right?
Or
Not
sure,
because
maybe
he,
some people think he's a god, but he doesn't think that himself. Like when you watch Snyder Man, he feels that way about himself too, that like humans are beneath him and he's a god. That's what I never understood because Superman wouldn't feel that way even if other people did.
well, let's back up because I don't think that he himself and Man of Steel thinks that he's above them. I just think that he's more upset that people are afraid of him, and again, that's the narrative that they try to go for with these movies that just doesn't fucking work. Um, but no, he's gonna be making a Superman movie. But not only are we getting Superman, but we're getting Batman, the Brave and the Bold, which is another comic that is from Grant Morrison, where Batman is dealing with his son Damian, who he had a daughter with Talia al Ghul. Um, so honestly, Damian Wayne is my least favorite Robin. But it is cool to hear that we're gonna get an established Bat family. We haven't got any type of Bat family action since what Batman and Robin with Mr. Freeze, right?
Yes, is
And I
that
know
shit.
you don't like that movie, but it's one of my guilty pleasures. So it'll be cool because if we're dealing with Damien, that means that we're gonna have Nightwing, we're gonna have Tim Drake, Robin. We might have a Jason Todd in the background. Barbara Gordon may or may not be paralyzed. Who knows? That just leaves a lot of room to do a bunch of cool shit, right? That we've never gotten before on screen. Um, but not only are we getting that, we're getting a Green Lanterns TV show. That was fucking cool to hear about. There's apparently a Themyscira, Women on Themyscira TV series that's coming to. Amanda Waller's coming back as well. Viola Davis, so that's cool to see her come back because she's one of my favorite parts of Suicide Squad. Even though, the first one sucked, she was still a cool part of it.
And I think when it comes to his slate with the Waller show with Viola Davis, I'm excited about that because of the aspect of Peacemaker being involved and seeing where that goes. I'll pretty much follow that guy anywhere, so I'm excited for that. And you mentioned earlier that you were a little bit disappointed because I guess it wasn't anything too crazy amazing where you're just like, oh man, that's gonna be awesome. Which I was in the same boat, but I can't say that I personally was disappointed. I was actually very happy, not because of what exactly was announced per se, but just because of his message behind it. Because I don't think that video was really meant to get you to like blow your
Yeah,
stack. I think more it was just to say, here, guys, so we have a plan. Here's the point of our plan, and here's why we're doing it. And his big why is what I like because he started talking about how their mission is to make sure everything's connected, cohesive, not all over the place, as random as it's been. And also, as one of the things that I like the most is how he talks about storytelling is king here. We want to make sure that we get good stories that are interesting, that are fleshed out, maybe with new characters that you've never heard of. Maybe you've heard of some of them, but you know what? Either way, it's going to fit into a nice puzzle piece, that's what's important to me at the end of the day. So,
Yeah, no, me too. That's what I've been craving from DC, man. And just to mention too, the Supergirl was also announced. Another movie called The Authority was announced. Creature Commandos, Booster Gold, and the Paradise Lost is that one that we just talked about. With that being said, he also mentioned that this is not everything that's been announced too. Like there's apparently, I think he said that there's more that's coming out.
yeah, this is just a part of the beginning. This isn't the full picture for even the first phase. It was just a part of the first phase. So who knows?
Right.
I mean, there was people over here being like, "Oh, how disappointing! How lame! I haven't even heard of these characters." We just get this vibe that there are some people who were at the beginning rooting to fail. And I'm not talking about every single Snyder fan, but I'm just saying when it comes to people who aren't willing to accept anything that is Snyder, they're really just saying that because they don't see Darkseid being the main villain in the third movie in, that it's a letdown. Like, not everybody wants that, man. I know you just want to see that and see that nonstop, but I'm actually okay with the build up. I'm okay with setting up a universe that build it
Yes.
up. Come on.
Well, and that's the thing too, is like they love to sit there and be upset that people are mad that Superman died in the second movie. Oh, you don't really need a build up for that to happen. It's like, no, technically I don't need a build up, but a build up is gonna make me give a shit more.
It'd be nice. I would actually
Like I would
care.
care more. Like if I'm over here watching Man of Steel and he barely just becomes Superman, I'm just like, okay, cool. He's gonna be Superman next movie. And then the next movie is a fucking dark, depressing mess. And then all of a sudden he fucking dies. Like, am I supposed to care that he's dead? Like, oh yeah, shit, that sucks. Superman died, but I felt nothing when it happened. I felt more when fucking Polka Dot Man bit the dust than fucking Superman. I felt
Than
more when
Superman.
Rick Flag fucking died than Superman. And then not only that, Zack Snyder shows the fucking dirt rising off the fucking coffin at the end of the movie, so it's like, oh hey, he's coming back. But I digress. The point is that things are gonna be starting off on a good foot, even though I got kind of mixed feelings on this one. Even though Superman's supposed to be younger and supposed to be following his days as a reporter, we're getting a Batman with a Damian Wayne. So that means that he's been Batman for a while. He's probably going to be older than Superman again.
Hmm.
But I would hope that he's not that much older. I'm hoping for like maybe a 5 year gap between the two. Um, and that's about as old as I hope that they go.
Exactly. I hope that they kind of stay around that too. And I like where it's starting off. I mean, I can't really say that Damian is my favorite Robin, but the fact that at least we're kind of jumping into that and getting something interesting that we haven't seen in live action, it's something that they can start with. It's a neat jumping
I
off
mean, you're
point.
getting
So,
fucking Batman with a son. Like, it's a
yeah.
Batman father son movie. Like, can you imagine all the dads and sons going to go see that movie? Like, that's a cash cow right there. The fuck?
True. Very true.
Like, it is a cash cow. And apparently, that's not to go off topic too much. But that's what Wakanda Forever was supposed to be about. Was that it was supposed to be a T'Challa father son type of movie. But of
Oh,
course,
really? I didn't know
R
that.
R yeah, R.I.P. to Chadwick. He passed away, and they had to rewrite the whole fucking thing. Um, so yeah, that's apparently what that was going to be about. I don't know what the basis was about for it, but I do remember hearing about it's supposed to be about him and his son bonding or whatever, which I would have liked to see.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, but that's pretty much about it. I mean, there's actually a couple more things I want to talk about. We'll try to make them quick. But the first thing is sell the Snyderverse to Netflix. That is some funny fucking shit. They're getting so desperate that they realize that their shitty universe ain't coming back, and they're desperate for people to buy it. And it's like you do realize that Batman and Superman are not owned by Snyder, but they're owned by WB and DC Comics, and that's not how IPs work.
Not at all. And the fact that this is even a real hashtag that people are legitimately trying to get trending for their cause is it really just blows my mind sometimes that they really think things work like that, or is that black and white, or I understand desperation to an extent, but you would think after so many signs, so much rejection, yes, that they had a win with the Snyder Cut, right? I'll give them that. But besides that, dude, after so much rejection and so much being shut down, they're still thinking that it's going to work, and without even considering how business works with shit like this. I'm very surprised.
No, absolutely. The crazy thing is just like I have no idea what they think Netflix is gonna do, right? Like, do you really think people are gonna hop on Netflix and want to go watch Justice League Part 2 when they don't even realize that Justice League Part 1 is even a thing? Like, this is not how it works, you know?
That would just
On top of
automatically be
that,
transferred to Netflix, and then all of a sudden they can just watch Justice League 2. And oh, if Netflix doesn't do it, man, don't forget their next bet is OnlyFans.
yeah,
OnlyFans,
OnlyFans.
scoop up the Snyderverse.
Sell the Snyderverse to OnlyFans. Hashtag.
I'll pay $10 a month if I can watch the Snyderverse on there.
If I can watch Ben Affleck be the in Batfleck movie, I totally pay for it. And I
If
don't,
I
and the
can watch
funny
Ben
thing
Affleck's
too,
ass. Sorry, what?
yeah, like showers, because they swear that's so important to the movie. Um, but it's funny too because they're doing it on Valentine's Day, and it's just like, you guys. I mean, and again, I don't really give a shit about Valentine's Day, but it's just like, do you have anything else better to do, like a job or hang out with your significant other? Like, you're just gonna go on the computer and do hashtag events for sell the Snyderverse to Netflix or do a bot and repeat that, and that's gonna be your day. That's what you want to spend it doing. All right.
Exactly. And again, not saying everyone, not saying literally everybody who likes the Snyder movies. It's just funny when you see those memes about like Valentine's Day and there's like a girl on the couch like getting ignored because this guy on his phone tweeting restore the Snyderverse.
You know what's funny is like they're the minority, right? Like
Yeah.
the thing is they love to sit there and say that they're the majority, but it's like no, you are the minority. Like anytime, remember I told you I went to the gym the other day and I was like, wow, they're playing Justice League, but look what version they're actually playing. The fucking Justice League. You really think the fucking gym is gonna put on the Snyder Cut Emerald version for their audience? No one's gonna even know what the fucking movie is.
Snyder Cut
So,
Emerald version. And because nobody, I feel like if they think that if they put that up there, people are gonna be like, what the hell is this? Like, this is a weird version. I didn't see this. Like,
yeah,
yeah,
they're gonna get 25 minutes of slow mo.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they put on what's the version, what movie was released in theaters, what's the canonical version, and as much as people want to argue differently, the fact is Zack Snyder's Justice League is not canon. None of it's canon now, so it doesn't fucking matter. But you know
Yeah,
what I'm saying.
facts.
But yeah, that it just points that like that's still the movie. What you like is like a side version that not that many people know about or care about, but that's not like the actual movie because technically the Justice version is the official one. So,
Yep,
yeah.
exactly. And man, I can't believe we forgot this, but I want to say that the real nail in the coffin for all this shit happening was fucking Black Adam, man.
Oh my God, how did we not bring up Black Adam? You know what?
But
I
see,
guess that goes to
dude,
show
see,
how much of an
that's how
impact that movie
forgettable it
makes.
is.
Yeah.
That's how fucking forgettable that fucking trash ass, steaming, dookie, dinky fucking movie is. Yeah, that abysmal fucking piece of garbage that is Black Adam. Um, you know what's funny too? A lot of these Snyder fans thought that Black Adam was gonna save the Snyderverse, right? They're like, oh
Right.
yeah, get Black Adam in there. It's just kind of like it gives Snyder vibes, but yeah, it's gonna save the DCEU because Henry Cavill's in it. And what do you know? They fucking brought Henry Cavill back as Superman, where it wasn't a headless cameo for the first time. He's headless in Shazam. He was a silhouette in Peacemaker, and it's just so funny because like he comes back as Superman, and remember that's what they wanted, right? They kept bitching for Henry Cavill to come back. And you know what the fuck that they were mad about because he came back? Guess why they were fucking mad? I want you to take a wild guess.
Because he came back and he wasn't wearing the suit that they wanted him to wear.
And a fucking curl on his head. That is why
Oh
they were
yeah, the
pissed the fuck
curl.
off. They're like, what the fuck is this? He's not wearing the fucking black suit, and he's got that fucking curl on his head. Oh, they're not even acknowledging Zack Snyder's Justice League. They're acknowledging the fucking Justice Cut, and they were so fucking butthurt about
They
that.
hated that
They
Superman looked like
fucking hated it.
Superman. They couldn't
Hell
stand it.
yeah. They were so fucking butthurt over it. And the funny thing is too is that they love to sit there and say that they read comics, but him wearing that gray suit is literally a fucking change of underwear. Like he's only wearing it so he can absorb his powers better. And because the nigga was dead and now he's back. So
Then he
he's
doesn't
only
wear
wearing
it
that.
anymore.
Yeah, then he doesn't wear it anymore. But no, because they hate fucking color, like I told you earlier. They prefer things devoid of any type of fucking color or any type of true comic bookness that, oh, I need that gray suit there because I fucking hate color. And they were butthurt about that. And you know what's even more fucked up? And a week after that, Henry Cavill was like, "Oh yeah, I'm back as Superman," and Brock's like, "This was gonna change the hierarchy of the DC universe." Yeah,
Oh
it
my
sure did,
God.
buddy. It sure fucking did. You weren't wrong about that.
Not in the
not
way you wanted it at
not
all,
yeah,
man.
not the way you wanted it all, buddy.
Dude, I can't even. Oh man, we can go off on a tangent forever talking about the whole hierarchy of power shit going on for so long. Like, what even was that? Now that means
Dude, that shit
nothing.
was so. He was hyping that movie up like he was wrestling again. It was just like, bro, you need to relax, especially after seeing that movie. I'm like, this is what this nigga was trying to gas for a
This
whole
is what you
year.
were gassing up, man?
This is what you were gassing up, dude. Please. You know what's
Oh,
funny too, man? Is like The Rock has such a fucking hard on for Superman and Black Adam, right? It's like Superman versus Black Adam, who's stronger? And it's like, buddy, it's Black. Do you not know your comics? Black Adam is not a Superman villain. He's a Shazam villain. And
that's the
on
thing that was
top of
so
that,
confusing. That's the only
so
conversation he wanted to
stupid.
have. The only conversation he was interested in was who is stronger, Superman or Black Adam. And like nobody else cares as much as you do, man.
Dude, it's so fucking dumb. But what makes it even funnier, man, is remember you showed me that article, or I could have showed it to you. I don't remember. I mean, we sent the same shit, but it was basically them saying that, hey, Dwayne, do you mind being in the Shazam movie so that way it'll make more sense for you to have your own movie? And you know what he said? He said no. I don't want
Nope.
to be in a Shazam movie. I want my own movie, and then I'm gonna fight Superman later. The
He said
Rock really
himself,
thought he
this
was
is not
calling the shots,
speculation.
man.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. I mean he said it himself. This isn't speculation. He was the original plan, which would have been better. Let's just get that out of the way. Is introduce him in a Shazam sequel, but nope. He fought against that and said that Black Adam needs his own movie. Why? Fucking beats me, dude. I have no idea why he thought that.
He doesn't even fucking know. That's the joke. Is he doesn't even know why. Like, come on, man. Like don't. And you know what's funny too? That fucking movie bombed. And what's funny too is remember he was getting laughed at because he was trying to overhype how much the movie made, and WB was like, slow your roll there, Chief, because that
They're
ain't
trying to
fucking
shut that
true.
down, and they're all like putting shit out there talking about how he was like inflating numbers to make it seem like it didn't lose as much. Like, come
Hmm.
on, dude.
Black Adam, more like Black Flop. And you
Black
know
flop.
what the funny thing too is like it was an agonizing watch for me. I know you watched it and you had a fun time with it, but I was just waiting for it to be over.
Yes, I did not have as much of a bad time as you did with that. I actually kind of enjoyed parts of it, but that's not something that you could say. And I always found it funny how it was just a chore for you to get through that entire movie.
Oh, dude, that movie was fucking abysmal to watch, man. Like even Amani didn't fucking like it. Like
Really?
even she was just like, yeah, this is pretty cringe. Like, I mean, the humor was so bad. The fucking action was lackluster, and the fucking villain was just so forgettable.
Just
Fucking Doctor Fate is in the fucking movie. He's like the only cool thing about it. And they fucking kill that nigga, and
yep.
then Hawkman over here is having a fucking jerk session with The Rock the entire time. And it's just like, don't kill people. No, I'm gonna do it. And they use that as the humor for the whole movie too. Like,
We're not
oh, I'm
supposed
gonna
to
take
kill
this guy
people.
up.
Well, I do.
Oh, well, I do. And then he grabs those two guys and then he drops them, and that's a fucking big haha moment. And it's just like, shut the fuck up,
You're like not impressed at all.
Black Flop. I don't know what he thought was gonna come from that.
Well, isn't it funny now to think about it? Because the way he was talking about that movie and the impact, and now is there any impact? Nobody talks about it. I don't think
It
about that
came
movie
and
at
went,
all.
man.
It left.
It
It's gone.
it came and went. And even funnier, man, when that movie was on release for video on demand, that nigga did
Mm.
not promote it. He did not say anything about it. He was silent as fuck. He
No,
don't
hey,
even talk
Black
about
Adam
the movie
available to
now.
rent. Check it out.
Nothing.
Oh boy. Yeah,
Oh
so
my
Black Adam
god.
is really where we're left with, right? I mean, that's it before the reboot. Well,
Yeah, that's about it.
color announcement now, I mean, like, we have a few more down the road that were going to happen anyways, but James Gunn is turning that into the reboot section of all this. So, um, man, who knows? I mean, to think about our speaking of slates, before we kind of cap this off here, and I know we're kind of going off, we have our slate of what's to come and what we're looking forward to. If we take a look, I sent you a picture once a while back about it was listing in one picture every single DC movie that came out, starting from Man of Steel up until I think where we're left with Black Adam, and obviously there's stuff that we like Aquaman and the Suicide Squad, but you look at that whole picture and it's not impressive in the least, right? Like it's just very lackluster.
Oh, it's bad. It's so all over the place too. It's like, where did y'all think this was gonna go? Like,
Exactly.
and like I don't even believe this, but people are giving Black Adam an 88% on the audience rating. It's like, get the fuck out of here. That's a bunch of bullshit.
I just don't get how that works. I really don't, and I feel like there's just maybe some people. I mean, you can actually read through the reviews and see what some people were thinking. And the big thing that I see is, oh, it was really fun. It didn't take itself seriously. Yada yada yada. I don't mind just having some dumb fun and stuff like that. But you didn't get that from it, so you're just kind of like left with nothing, right?
Fuck no. Yeah, burn it.
Yeah.
Burn every single copy. Don't ever let that movie see the light of day ever again.
Exactly. But yeah, I mean that's kind of where we're at. We have new DC to look forward to. Some people are really upset. From what I've seen, the majority are really happy. We've even had some accounts on Twitter that we've enjoyed observing over the past couple of years that are going into retirement, and they're like, "Why? Well, we don't really need to do this anymore. We're excited for the new slate. Just gonna watch new DC and go from there." And that's pretty much where we're at. So. Uh, is there
Yeah.
anything left that you think needs to be addressed with this universe before you are officially done? Moving on. Let's just be happy for what we got.
Um, Word to Tobey Maguire and Spider-Man 3. Good riddance.
Good riddance indeed. I mean, it came
Good
and went.
riddance to the Snyderverse. Keep it
It
dead and
what's
buried, and don't
started.
ever exhume it ever again.
And it's funny that you say that. I mean, started as the Snyderverse, but then he got kicked out, and technically it was supposed to be the same universe, but WB was still trying to pivot away from the Snyderverse.
No, it's the Hamadaverse.
It's the Hamada. Oh God, Lester on Hamada, Jeff Johns. I'm just gonna throw executives' last names. Yada yada yada. Like that means anything. Like, yeah, okay. Shut up. So annoying.
So
But
fucking stupid.
I mean, I guess that's it, man. That we, came back. This is how we feel about it. We got a lot to look forward to. Um, we're glad we're able to come back and talk about it after a while. And it's been a bit, but it's nice to just
Yep.
come back and shoot the shit. Uh, so far, I think that's pretty much all I have, unless there's anything that you want to reach for now that we're gonna end.
No, not I. Nothing
Okay,
else for
well,
me.
cool. I guess the only time will tell where the volume is what's gonna happen in the future, and until then, rip Snyderverse. I would
Rest
say I
in
would miss
piss.
you. I would say that I would miss you, but I would just be lying, so I'm not gonna say that. And looking forward to new
Burn in
DC.
hell.
Looking forward to
Burn
new
in
DC.
hell.
I So, with all that being said, we're going to go ahead and wrap up this seventh episode of the Back to Formula podcast. Thank you all for listening. If you made it to this point, really appreciate the fact that you're willing to listen to two Randys just babble on about the Snyderverse for a little over an hour. But it's been fun. Again, we're your hosts here, Christian, and
Jordan.
until next time. Rip Snyderverse, hail James Gunn. You are the ultimate
Rest in
Chad, and
piss.
not Zach, just because he lifts weights. And bye.
Fuck dick.